Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is part 2 of post-birth pelvic pain, shame, and dysfunction. You are not alone. Again, I'm just going to remind you that there is a trigger warning here. There are the sharing of women's stories of injury, pain, shame, and a variance of experiences that may be triggering for you and your personal experience. So if you're not feeling in a space of readiness for that, please just skip this podcast and come on back to next week when we change the dial on what we're talking about. And we hope that you find, I nearly choked on my words then, which is probably quite, as I'm going like this, oh my God, it's hard to get the words out. It's quite telling, isn't it, of this journey for myself and I imagine other women. I hope that you will once again find enormous compassion, maybe even anger, that I hope you turn into something that is enormously beautiful. Please don't forget the purpose of anger is to galvanize you into action that is potent, purposeful, and powerful. And I hope that you use that for the greater good of yourself and all women.
So you have some words from women. Do you want to share them?
Yeah, I just apologize to everyone in advance because I will keep all of these responses anonymous and I'll do my best as I'm going through them because I've just screenshot responses from women so that I could just pick out points of their story so that we can all collectively feel into what a common experience this is. So, and also just to maybe just have a little rage for the way that we are treated, have been treated, or women are treated. And I also hope with that rage comes a sense of self-compassion for a system that failed you. So that perhaps that empowers you to begin or continue a journey of your own empowerment and healing in whatever way that looks like. Whatever, it should feel good and whole and aligned from you. It should not come from a place of shooting.
Yeah.
It should not come from a place of you're not working hard enough. Because Lord knows, particularly as a mother in our isolated culture without support, you work darn hard every day.
Yeah, I love that you've acknowledged that.
So thank you for your heartfelt sharing on NTM re your prolapse trauma. I have a bladder prolapse and my last pap smear was 5 years ago because my GP freaked out and that they couldn't find my cervix. Like, even how fucking awful is that?
Oh, as an experience to have.
What the fuck? The shame, embarrassment, and fear stopped me from going back. So now, because of one healthcare provider's response, this woman now is blocked from accessing her own health.
Yeah.
Sex is different. Putting in a tampon is different. Everything feels different. Getting my urine out requires several different movements to allow it to flow. It's a silent trauma I deal with. We deserve better. Thank you for your dilemma, and hope your courageous sharings brings the gift of solutions. I've had similar experience because of childbirth with no acknowledgement and support postpartum and thus no solution or help. The effect on quality of life is real. I haven't dared have another child because of this.
Like, fuck, how heartbreaking.
What are we doing?
Mm.
Julie, I'm listening to this week NTM, and I've got big hot tears rolling down my face for you, in commas, in brackets, and me. The irony being, I'm out of my walk rehab program after being told I have the start of a mild prolapse too. I have 2 girls, 6 and 4, and movement is my life. So much of my ego is tied into running, which I've had to shelf suddenly after finding this out. Thankfully, I found a great women's physio to help me, but fuck, I'm battling mentally with the anger. And as you said, the awkwardness and shame around trying to tell people is next level. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say thank you for your experience in vulnerability. I've needed it so much. And I have anger towards males in general, not having to ever experience any of this despite hubby trying hard. Your story hurt my heart for you. I hope you will get some answers. Big warm hugs. Your honesty in this episode lit the fire in my belly to keep pushing and moving forward to help heal my postpartum body. This week, got my hip bursitis injected with cortisone. I've been in pain for years. Next on the list is assessing my pelvic floor, which I'm pretty sure has prolapse. So even that, right? Like just spotlighting, just having a conversation makes women activate their own healthcare. Sorry, it's a bit disjointed when I try and read it this way. This woman's talking about pain in her coccyx that went beyond discomfort and into proper pain that impacted her lifestyle. And on X-ray showed her tailbone was displaced, which actually I have heard, so post-childbirth, and that has never been diagnosed.
Because of how much moving happens in the sacrum.
I don't know how it happens, but obviously it's a birth trauma. And often, they experience a lot of pain, and often then, again, no system of healthcare that helps them post-birth, right?
Yeah, wow.
So the coccyx had been displaced and fused in the wrong position, and then childbearing and birthing put strain on all the muscles and ligaments surrounding it, which was where the pain was coming from. Then another bub, I felt prolapsy in the early weeks, but that healed by the time I got a check-in, but still with the incontinence. I saw a publicly funded pelvic floor physio through the hospital who was pretty damn awful. She concluded I had 3 options: wait and see if hormones settle after cycle returning would make a difference, lose weight, get stronger pelvic floor muscles, use pelvic floor weights, and she found a better physio. One who recognised that she had overly tight or overactive muscles. So 10 months on, she feels like she's managing to coordinate it all better and feel like she's not a woman who has to hobble around at 27. Totally.
Gosh, 27. And also, can we just acknowledge just the intensity of trying to navigate this as you're raising little people?
Right, exactly.
You know, like,
how do you even get time off to go and see these specialists or to do the exercise programs? Like,
or to sometimes get the rest that you need, because it's also the constantly being on your feet or the constantly denying you of your own needs that can exacerbate these things as well. And yet, like, that's what motherhood often does.
Exactly. Thank you for sharing this podcast. It's reminded me I need to refocus on this area of my health. I have the beginning of all 3. That she means prolapses. I've been given conflicting information by different specialists, with the end result basically being that I just need to wait it out for 20 years until it's bad enough for surgery.
Wow.
And maybe lose some weight.
Because that's a quality of life.
I fucking hate this shit. The system is disgraceful. I'm so sorry that you and women collectively are going through this. Julie, I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. I'm 27 years old with a postpartum stage 2 prolapse. It's like mine. I can't even put into words the way having a prolapse at 27 has affected my self-confidence, identity, and sexuality. She's been following a certain person's work, but she doesn't seem to address prolapse, which is often the case in sexual teachers. In fact, as you have said, I've also not been able to find anyone who is dedicated to this, and it's a topic seriously lacking in research and discussion, which even the surgeons would say this is not enough research. We don't even know the answers to the questions that we're asking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for giving me hope, and I'll be following your journey closely from here. I also mentioned I did this raging, actually, if you haven't seen that this is to our listeners, if you haven't seen that, I did this raging reel or live on my Instagram feed around surgical options being what they define, what they put a vagina back together with.
Oh my God.
That one.
I watched it. I was absolutely horrified.
I was having this rageful moment as I was processing and contemplating the way that they sew a vagina back together. So one of the questions I had asked this surgeon was, well, how do you know what, like when you cut the front and back wall of my vagina and essentially seal it over again and create a stronger wall, how do you know what size you're making it and the vaginal opening? How do you know? And she said, well, she didn't say it like that. She went, well, it's interesting you should ask, because essentially some man at some point in time, which is they had this massive conference like that was on at the moment debating heatedly, she said, this very argument that some man at some point in history decided that the perfect vagina was 2 finger widths.
Oh my God.
So she said, generally we would sew your vagina back to 2 fingers.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what the fuck? Whose fingers? And whose fingers? Because your fingers would be littler than my fingers.
Yeah, and what about the person you're performing the operation on? Their size?
6'1". No.
Oh
Two vagina for everybody.
2 fingers vagina for everyone.
Yeah, and beyond that, right? And I know, and I have been told by so many practitioners, I already knew about that, Julie. And I went, yeah, I know you already knew, but there's all of these women that don't know that a husband stitch is being done to them post-birth. So on top of the 2 finger vagina is the concept that when you're being sewn back together after birth, that they put an extra stitch, which is like genital mutilation, only it's this very, whitewashed,
yes,
non-talked about thing with this like wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the husband, you'll thank me in 10 years' time. So closing the vagina beyond what it even normally was into a smaller hole so that it gives pleasure to the husband's penis, but she stays in pain for the rest of her sexual life.
It's just, I can't even put words to how disgusting that is.
I can't even. So I'm going to, there's a few stories, why I say it, there's a few stories in here about that. And then on that live was the other part that I was raging about, which the future, the like best next level future for vaginal prolapse surgery is that we take a prosthetic cast of your husband's penis and a prosthetic cast of your vagina, and we work out the perfect fit, and that is how we sew your vagina.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I'm saying it comically now, but back then when I was doing the live, I was fucking shaking. I was so rageful. I was like, what?
So we basically make you the perfect vessel for a shaft.
Right. Right. I just and I said that to Nick, and Nick went, what? So what happens when you get divorced or you leave that relationship? I'm like, exactly, Nick. Oh, sorry, Jim. My vagina was made to fit Bob.
Oh, my God.
Like, what the fuck?
Oh, my God.
I'm just the carrier of your penis fitting.
I'm just, just come and, do you fit? Can we make this work if you fit my
It's actually horrific because nowhere in that are we centering women's sexual.
She's not even centered. It's just she's a vessel for men's pleasure.
Exactly. This is exactly my point.
Oh, my God.
And this actually highlights only one concentric circle of the larger picture of our culture's sexuality, which is still male penis centric.
Which is, of course, largely the whole porn industry, right? Like,
all of it, even the internalized.
And the dolly magazines we read when we were 10.
Right.
It's all about
the penis.
Pleasure. The penis. Oh, God.
So, I was raging about that. This podcast is sponsored by what is coming up in our places and spaces. Bridgie.
Yes, so Reimagining Motherhood, which is the community and membership for women who are deeply desiring to empower their motherhood and feel more inspired and connected. So coming up, we have a course on Recalibrate. So it's all about mother rage, repair, and resourcing yourself in motherhood. And it's in response to the conversations happening and also what's alive in me right now. And whenever we show up with what's alive in us, there's something potent there. So I'm looking forward to the toolkits that I'll be sharing, and also just the conversations that we're going to be having around, again, bringing more things out of the shadows for mothers, and accepting more parts of ourselves. And what about you, Jules?
Lover School begins on April 25th. Creating desire, cultivating passion, up-leveling intimate communication in long-term relationship, which is a totally different beast.
Yes.
To any other type of relationship.
Oh, I love it.
So I bring all of my wisdom, experience. There's trainings for more masc beings. There's trainings for more femme beings that you can watch at your own self-pace. And we gather together in a group for 6 weeks where I'm available for your facilitation, for your steps forward, for opening community conversation around things that we would normally not open. And we all know the value of vulnerability and openness from this podcast. So you can find out more at julietenner.love. So then I put up a story about the stitch, because I was saying that women don't realise that this is happening. And she said, I just watched your live, Jules, and I'm feeling your rage. You reminded me that after the birth of my first babe, I was 23, the female doctor was stitching me up, and I heard her say to the midwife, I put an extra stitch here. The husbands thank me in 10 years' time. I was horrified as my dad was sitting next to me holding my baby at the time. Penetration was so painful for me for so long afterwards because of that. My wonderful family doctor could see straight away at my checkup what had been done, and it wasn't until I had my second baby that the issue was resolved. I had pushed that memory so far away, but thank you for reminding me I can process that now with who I am today. So much love to you. I had a woman message me saying, yes, this happened to me too with my first, and I still have a skin tag from the awful stitching they did. And I said, were you told about it? And she said, that's a layer that I'd buried until I saw your post, and it came flooding back to my mind. I hemorrhaged after my first birth, and when the doctor was stitching me up, said, we'll just pop another one in that will keep your husband happy. I was in shock from the horrific birth and not really with it at this point, but I also recall my ex-husband joking about the extra stitch weeks after. He's a pig. Hindsight. Which I got to tell you, the men that joke about that, it seems to me in all of the responses that I've had, are now divorced. So I don't know if that's a qualifier, but I reckon it might be.
Wow.
Another woman had said, yes, it was a trauma I buried so deep. The husband stitch, sex was painful, and the thought that it was my fault. And I just persevered through it. Of course, she said that I can share, and she's having these conversations with her baby, with her friends. I was given one, and he was told he's done it after my first baby, full midline episiotomy, and he was, in inverted commas, fixing it. He said to my husband, oh, and I added an extra stitch for you, and laughed.
Oh, my God.
This is what is happening in the birth rooms.
I can't even understand how, on any level, any healthcare provider considers that appropriate. What era are we living in?
I know. I believe I was given a husband stitch after my first baby. See, this is women guessing and trying to work it out because they're not actually told. And this is not a conversation that anyone is really having, so they don't even know. And then we assume it's a birth-related issue, that sex is now painful after childbirth, which is not true.
God.
So I believe I was given a husband stitch after my first baby. I was so uncomfortable even to sit down. Then I had a second PPH, and the surgeon who went in to stop it told me later that my stitches tore and he had to restitch, and I had no more discomfort after that. So she's had one surgeon who's put it in, and then one surgeon who hasn't, and her life experience has changed dramatically based on that.
Wow.
Isn't it extraordinary? My OB made a joke while stitching me too. something along the lines of, I asked, are you stitching me and how many would I need? And he brushed it off and said, not to worry about it. And then looked at my husband who was holding the baby and said, I'll sort it all out and pop a few extra in with a wink, wink.
Oh my God.
Now I think about it, it's so revolting. You're at your most vulnerable, have been an absolute warrior and birthed a child, torn apart, and then that. It's only now years later you realise it's not right. I feel like I'm becoming enraged lately as I question so many things, and your story just hit me. I'm so glad you're angry. You deserve better. Fuck the system. I went in for a Fenton's procedure as there was webbing on the scar tissue from when I was stitched after I tore. So the surgeon possibly did the old extra stitch you mentioned in your live. It's been painful sex since, which I just thought was my new normal after childbirth. My new OB is amazing, and she said that it certainly isn't normal. So I just like...
There needs to be some serious professional development of obstetricians around this internalized misogyny that is absolutely disgusting.
It's disgusting, isn't it? It's another prolapse. My journey with prolapse started with my second baby was 7 months old. I was getting constipated more and more frequently and noticing this huge bulge in my vagina, not quite external, but almost. It freaked me out. I was in shock and I was increasingly uncomfortable. My prolapse was rectal. Luckily, my mum is a nurse and she could name it straight away. And when I described it, I got a referral to a women's physio, and then she went on her journey. But again, so much grief and rage. And she's just sharing her story with me, which is, really beautiful. Jules, I laughed, cried and raged with you yesterday listening to your prolapse podcast. I want to play it to the world and scream, wake up, people. I think that was one of the most powerful and potent podcasts you've done. Thank you for sharing. So when my pelvic floor physio did an examination, she found I have stage 1. Like you, the exercises never really worked. The only thing that helped me too was acupuncture and homeopathic remedy sepia. It's great for the heavy draggy sensation, particularly when I bleed, but I hope you find the answers. And then just lots of other women. I mean, I seriously have an entire folder through, but that is just a handful.
Wow.
Of some of the experiences that women are going through. So I just want to say, if you're going through that, you literally are not alone. Like, you're literally not alone.
And how many of the women that you're, having coffees with or chatting to in the schoolyard or, just come across in your daily life are having this private shame or battle or, that you don't even know about.
You don't even know about. And even just in my really intimate, small inner group of women who there's a few of them that listen to our podcast, I had 2 of them message me saying, I'm the same. But I would never have known that. We've been friends for years. And I didn't know that.
Because it's not really a club you want to be part of or sing from the rooftops that you're part of until someone gives you permission.
Yeah. Makes you wrong or unsexy or sexual or undesirable or whatever it is.
Or broken, right? According to what?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not okay. It's not the way that, inverted commas, it's supposed to work. I think if you have the mild stages of the beginning of a prolapse, I imagine, and I have heard from so many women, that there's heaps of alternative pathways that work amazingly well for you. Yes, pelvic floor. Yes, looking at posture. One of the theories is that chronic bad posture creates an imbalance in the body's internal pressure systems, which creates pressure on different organs of the body, and hence bubbles of prolapse appear. So, look at all of that. Look at everything that you want to look at, acupuncture and...
Also the chair, the chair thing.
Yes, I can't think what that's called right now.
But it sends like little pulses.
Yes. Or do all of it. Do whatever feels really good for you. Do all of it. And know that you can have surgery to help you. That you don't have to live with it.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the permission women need, is also that's a really reasonable, and perhaps wise choice too.
Mm. Mm. So I'm still on this journey. We'll probably still be having conversations about this on this podcast sporadically as I find my way through it. I would always love to hear from you with a shared experience or your own remedies or insights or awakenings or questions. I am so want to be on this journey with you. And, I'm really grateful, Bridgie and I are very grateful that you're willing to have these conversations with us, because we literally are stronger together. And when we have less veils of shame, we're able to claim more of our personal power and therefore impact this world and our children's development in more powerful ways.
And, even this reclamation of women's health and pelvic health, the ripple effect of that, not only for the women around us, because certainly I've now gone, I actually need to prioritize this, so I'm booking in to see a specialist to have my everything looked at again. And the ripple effect of that also means, that my daughters see me caring for my body, right? And how important is that imprint that we give our children, that where we center ourselves and we center our care and we center the prioritizing of what we need to show up in the way we want to show up for life, rather than relegate our needs to some place when everyone else is met first. And it's really beautiful and important for them to see too.
Yeah, it is. So we really hope that you do that for your own pelvis and that you seek the healing and the support that you need. And if you're not sure where that exists, please feel free to reach out to us. And we would love to hear from you. So we're Nourishing the Mother on Instagram and Facebook, and we're bridgetwood.life and julietenner.love. And have you got stuff going on at the moment, Brie?
Reimagining motherhood is where I'm at. And in fact, based on the community's needs and definitely what I've been moving through myself, we are about to launch into a beautiful series on all things anger and recalibrating our own anger and seeing wider and, practicing tools to move through it. And it's feeling really, really lit up in me right now. So that's what you can find in Reimagining Motherhood, as well as an enormous library of courses and resources and a beautiful community of women. So find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. and it is Reimagining Motherhood at bridgetwood.life. And what about you, Jules? What's happening in your world?
Well, I have Lovers School, which is launching on April 25th, creating desire, cultivating passion, up-leveling intimate communication in long-term relationships. So you have evergreen course content that you can watch alone or in companionship. And there's two-hour workshops facilitated by me that you can join via Zoom with your partner, and we get to do some really cool stuff in a 6-week container where we get to have some really cool conversations. You can find out more at julietenner.love.
Beautiful. Remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before